In this video, we're going to take a look at views. It might help to think of a view as a save select statement that you can select from just like it was a table. You can use joins, concatenations, subqueries, functions, any of the things we've learned in this course so far, you can use to create a view. Why would you use a view? Well, views can be useful in many different situations. You might write a view for yourself if there's certain data you query often and you don't want to use a regular save select statement because it would be quicker and easier just to select from a view. You also might use a view if you have an end user who needs to be able to query only certain information. For example, you want that end user to be able to see patient information, but you don't want the user to have access to Social Security numbers, SSNs. You can write that view that selects the patient information, excluding the SSNs, and the end user would have access to that view instead of the actual table that has the SSNs in it. I'm going to show you the statement I used to create a view called male person. This is a very simple view. It just selects star from person, where the person gender is 1 or the person is male. And above the select statement, we have the keywords create view, and then the name we want to give our view, male person, keyword as, and then our select statement. When you create a view, I highly recommend saving the statement you used to create it with some comments at the top like I've done here. You might need to come back later if you forget what this view does, or another SQL developer comes along and wants to look at how the view works. Once you've created views, you'll see them over here in the Object Explorer under Views. Here you can see my male person view. From the Object Explorer, you can see what columns are selected by the view, but you can't really tell what the view is doing. So again, it's really helpful to save that create view statement for reference. There's another way to find out what the view does, and we'll look at that in a minute, but it's not ideal. SQL Server actually has some predefined system views or catalog views that you can query to get table data, column data, primary and foreign key data, and other database information. For example, if I do a query to select star from sys.tables, I get a list of all the tables in the current database. If I do select star from sys.foreign keys, I get a list of all the foreign keys in the current database. As you get deeper into database maintenance and design, querying from these catalog views will be useful. In fact, going back to the male person view, for example, if for whatever reason we've forgotten what that view does and we can't find the statement we used to create it, it turns out we can run a statement like this that selects the text of the view creation statement from the database. Now, this statement to create the male person view is so short, it's pretty easy to read on this one line, but if you had a much more complex view, it might be more difficult to decipher in this format. So again, it's just good practice to save your create statements when you create views. And to find out how to write this select statement here, I just did a quick search online and was able to find that pretty easily. Just one more quick tip. It's also helpful to name your views descriptively. Naming my male person view was a no-brainer, but if you have a large database with lots of views, you should come up with a good, consistent naming scheme for your views to help keep track. Let's create a new view. This view is going to select the person last name, person middle name and first name, and the gender description and ethnicity description. So we're joining the person table to the gender table, and I believe this was one of the homework questions along the way, this query. So I'm going to run this statement to create the view. Now, if we write a query to select from this view, we'll get these results. Just like we were querying a table. Now that we've created this view, if we want to get gender and ethnicity descriptions along with names, we can select from this view without having to write a query or go find a saved query to use every time. To delete a view, the syntax is almost the same as to drop a table, so drop gender, ethnicity, drop view, sorry, gender, ethnicity, run that. And now our gender ethnicity view has been dropped. Let's create another view called birthday info. This is based off one of the examples we worked on in Module 3. We have a concatenated field in there, and our view will have a column that says first name's age this year is the age they're turning this year. And I wanted to show you quickly that if you alias rows in your create view statement, like I've done here, these will be your column names when you go to query this view. So rather than selecting person ID from person info, or birthday info rather, you'll select just the ID, the alias name, from birthday info, etc. In this example, I didn't alias the field person gender, so that's the only column that when you're selecting from this view, you'll select person gender, the field name from the person table, to get the gender code, because I haven't aliased it. So let's create this view. So I've created this view, and then let's run a query that selects from it. And notice in my query, I've used those column alias names that I defined when I created the view in my select statement. You can also alter a view. So I'm going to make an unwise change here. I'm going to alter the male person view so that it now selects females, just so you can see the syntax for altering a view. The statement looks exactly like the create statement we used to create the view, but I've replaced the keyword create with the keyword alter. And I'm going to change person gender from 1 to 2 so that the view will now select females instead of males. And now you can see if I select star from male person, that I'm going to get the female patients. Now, in the real world, in a production database, you would obviously not want to make a change just as a test like I did here, because you have users out there who might be selecting from the view without knowing you just changed it, and they would end up getting bad data. You'd probably have a test environment where you could play around before putting any major changes into effect. So you'd want to test any changes there first and probably notify the end users who have access to that view about the coming change. I'm going to alter the view again so it does what it's meant to do. So this should get you started on writing views. You already have the knowledge of SQL you need, so basically any statement you can write in SQL, you now know how to make into a view.